Good evening, my friends. Tonight I want to speak to you about one of the strangest and most glorious mysteries of manifestation. A truth so simple that most people overlook it, and yet so powerful that when it finally takes root in your mind, it quietly changes the entire architecture of your life. Here it is. The moment you stop needing it, it begins to move toward you. The moment you cease to grasp, the thing you have been desiring begins to take form. The moment you release the desperate insistence that it must happen in a certain way, at a certain time, under a certain set of conditions, the path begins to clear. Not because the universe is rewarding you for pretending not to care, not because some cosmic force delights in watching you act indifferent, but because the very state of needing is what has been standing between you and the fulfillment of your desire. Let those words sink beneath the surface of your awareness. Most people never understand this. They spend their lives clinging, checking, hoping, worrying, anticipating, fearing, and trying to force reality into obedience. They believe that the more intensely they want something, the faster it will arrive. But desire, when it becomes desperate, no longer creates, it contracts, it tightens, it suffocates the very thing it seeks to bring forth. And so the human being, in his ignorance, begins to strangle his own good with his own hands. There is a sacred difference between desire and desperation. One is the creative motion of consciousness. The other is desire that has been wounded by fear. Desire in its natural state is beautiful. It is expansive. It is alive. It is the soul reaching toward fuller expression. It is not heavy. It does not collapse inward. It is not anxious. It is not pleading. It is a quiet and joyful movement of being toward the greater life that awaits its awakening. Desperation is something else entirely. Desperation is desire that has forgotten its divine nature. It has accepted the lie that says, I am not enough until this appears. I cannot be whole until this is mine. I cannot rest until reality bends to my demand. And the moment that lie is accepted, the whole body knows it. The shoulders harden, the chest tightens, the breath becomes shallow, the mind begins to spin, the heart begins to chase. And what was once a clean desire becomes a clenched fist trying to seize life by force. But life cannot be seized. Life can only be received. And it is received according to the state you occupy. If you move through life with the feeling of I need this, or I cannot be well, then that need becomes the very atmosphere of your consciousness. And consciousness, which is always creative, must then reflect that state back to you. It will not punish you. It will not ridicule you. It will simply mirror you. It can only answer the state you assume to be true. This is why so many people experience delay after delay, frustration after frustration, disappointment after disappointment. They are not failing because the universe has denied them. They are failing because they keep returning to the same state of lack. They keep rehearsing absence. They keep living as though the thing is not yet theirs. And so their life continues to confirm that belief. Think of your own life. The evidence is already there. There have been times when you wanted something so intensely that you could barely think of anything else. You watched it. You monitored it. You checked every sign, every message, every detail. You tried to control the shape of its arrival. And the harder you tried to force it, the more it seemed to retreat. Then there were other moments, perhaps when you were not even trying so hard, when something beautiful entered your life with almost no effort at all. A meeting, a job, an opportunity, a friendship, a call, a door opening that you had not been kicking down. And it arrived with a kind of grace that made you wonder how it happened so naturally. The difference was never luck. The difference was state. Relationships reveal this law with painful clarity. You have likely known the ache of wanting someone's attention so deeply that it consumed your thoughts. You watched their behavior. You interpreted their words. You replayed every text, every pause, every glance. You became emotionally invested in their response. And the more you invested from need, the more the energy seemed to slip away from you. And then one day, perhaps after you were tired of the chasing, perhaps after your heart had grown wiser, perhaps after you had simply outgrown the very version of yourself that was begging. Something shifted. You let go, not as a strategy, but as a natural surrender. And in that moment, the person who had seemed distant suddenly moved closer. The one who had seemed unavailable suddenly reached out. The one who had seemed indifferent suddenly seemed interested. People often call that coincidence. It is not coincidence. It is consciousness changing its state. You were no longer broadcasting incompleteness. You were no longer saying, please validate me, please choose me, please make me whole. You had returned, even if only briefly, to your own inner center. And wholeness is magnetic. Wholeness does not chase. Wholeness does not plead. Wholeness quietly attracts all that is in harmony with it. Now, I want to be clear about something because this truth is often misunderstood. When I say, stop caring what happens, I do not mean become cold. I do not mean give up on your dreams. I do not mean suppress your desires, deny your intentions, or act as though you have no preference. That is not surrender. That is another form of control dressed up as spirituality. The ego is clever. It knows how to disguise attachment as indifference. It says, I do not care while secretly caring very much. It says, I am detached while constantly scanning for evidence. But the universe is never deceived by performance. It responds only to what you truly are being. So what do I mean? I mean this. You may care deeply about your desire, but you no longer need the outer world to prove it to you before you can live in peace. You may want something fully, sincerely, powerfully, and yet no longer allow your emotional stability to depend on the timing of its arrival. You can desire with conviction and still remain unshaken. That is the difference. You can still have intention. You can still have direction. You can still have vision. But you are no longer emotionally hostage to the evidence. You no longer collapse when the world has not yet caught up. You no longer interpret delay as denial. You no longer treat the outer world as the authority over your peace. This is the essence of the law of assumption. You assume the wish fulfilled. You enter the feeling of the state desired. You remain faithful to that inner conviction. And then you go about your life without constantly demanding that the outer world reassure you that it is working. Do not carry your desire like a burden. Do not keep lifting it up every 5 minutes to check whether it still exists. Do not dig up what you have already planted in imagination. Put the seed into the fertile soil of consciousness and trust the invisible process. Because something is always happening beneath the surface. A seed does not burst into a tree the moment it is planted. There is a hidden interval. There is a sacred darkness. There is a period in which nothing visible seems to be occurring, and yet life is stirring, roots are forming, intelligence is organizing. The unseen is working faithfully long before the surface reveals it. Now imagine a gardener who understands this. The gardener plants the seed, he waters it, he tends the soil, he trusts the process, and then he leaves it alone. He does not dig it up every hour, he does not inspect it with panic. He does not stand over it trembling. He knows that growth cannot be bullied into appearing. And now imagine another gardener. He plants the same seed, but he cannot rest. Every hour he returns to the ground, he digs it up, he checks it, he worries, he demands signs. He becomes anxious because nothing is visible yet. He disturbs the soil again and again, until the very thing he wanted to nurture is prevented from taking root. This is what most people do with their manifestations. They say they believe. They say they have planted the seed. They say they have visualized, affirmed, and assumed. But then they cannot leave it alone. They check their bank account. They check their phone. They check the mirror. They check the relationship. They check the calendar. They check the circumstances. And every check is a subtle declaration that says it is still not here. And consciousness, obedient as ever, continues to create from that declaration. Checking is lack, watching is lack, monitoring is lack. And lack, repeated often enough, becomes your dwelling place. So one of the most powerful shifts you can make is to stop checking. When the impulse rises to look, to verify, to compare, to see whether anything has changed. Do not feed the impulse. Notice it, and then return gently to your life. Return to the present moment. Return to the conversation in front of you. Return to the meal, the walk, the task, the breath. Return to the certainty that beneath the surface something is already moving. Because your job is not to force the seed to grow. Your job is to remain in the state of one who knows it is growing. And there is another truth you must understand, because if you do not, you may mistake the interval for failure. The outer world is always slightly behind. Always. It reflects the residue of yesterday's assumption. It displays the echo of old states. It carries the footprint of consciousness already lived. So when you make a real inner shift, do not be surprised if the outer scene has not yet rearranged itself. That is not proof that nothing happened. That is simply evidence that the physical world has not yet finished catching up to the truth you have already accepted within. Your new order has already been placed. The kitchen is already cooking. The meal has not yet reached the table, but that does not mean it was not prepared. And your task in that in-between place is not to storm into the kitchen every hour demanding proof. Your task is to sit at the table in peace, to trust the unseen process, to live as though what is yours is on its way, because in consciousness it already is. Here is where the real test appears. Can you remain faithful to the new state while the old world is still speaking? Can you feel wealthy while the account still looks modest? Can you feel loved while the relationship still appears silent? Can you feel free while the circumstances still resemble a prison? Can you feel chosen while the outer evidence has not yet arrived? This is the deep work. Most people cannot remain there. They get a glimpse of faith, a glimpse of possibility, a glimpse of inner certainty, and then they are shaken by what they see. They return to the old state. They panic, they start looking again, they start needing again, and in that moment, they undo what they had begun to build. Do not do that. Do not pull up the seed before it sprouts. Stay, hold the state. Remain steady in the unseen truth until the seen world must conform, because it must conform. This is law, and here is the medicine that many people resist, yet it is the medicine that frees them most completely. You are already okay, right now, in this moment, not when the thing arrives, not when the world finally behaves, not when someone chooses you, not when the money comes, not when the door opens. Now, you are already whole, already enough, already complete. The thing you desire is not coming to save you from brokenness. It is coming to enrich the life of one who is already sacred. It is not the foundation of your worth. It is the decoration upon a life that already has value. This is why, when you finally realize this not only with your mind but with your being, a great peace enters you. You stop making the future responsible for your happiness. You stop postponing your wholeness. You stop saying, "One day I will be okay," and you begin living from the quiet truth that you already are. Then your desires cease to be lifelines and become blessings. They cease to be proof of your worth and become the sweet additions to a life already alive with meaning. And strangely, beautifully, when you no longer need them to complete you, they begin to come more freely than ever before. There is a distinct inner quality that appears when a person has truly entered this state. It is not frantic. It is not desperate. It is not high-strung excitement pretending to be faith. It is a calm and settled knowing, a quiet certainty, the kind of certainty that does not need to argue, the kind of certainty that does not need to shout, the kind of certainty that simply is. You think of your desire and there is no inner collapse, no panic, no pleading. Only a gentle acknowledgement. Yes, this is mine. It is done in consciousness. It belongs to me. And then you continue your day. That is the state that moves mountains. Not because it is loud, but because it is final. Not because it is dramatic, but because it is resting in completion. It is the feeling of someone who has already crossed the bridge, while the physical body is simply walking across the last few steps. And the world cannot help but obey the state you persist in. So let me give you something practical to carry with you. The next time you catch yourself caring too much, checking too much, worrying too much, gripping too tightly, pause. Stop for a moment. Take one slow breath. And ask yourself this question: what would soften in me right now if I knew, with absolute certainty, that what I desire is already mine? Notice what happens. The shoulders may drop, the jaw may loosen, the chest may open, the breath may deepen. That softening is not weakness. That exhale is not surrender to defeat. That relaxation is the state of already having. And you can enter it now, not after evidence, not after permission, not after confirmation. Now, then return to your life, wash the dishes, walk the street, speak to the person in front of you, do the work, eat the meal. Be present in the moment that is here. Let your desire do its hidden work beneath the surface while you remain in the state of trust. Do not dig it up. Do not disturb it. Do not hold it too tightly. Plant it in consciousness, and then live as one who trusts the law of growth. This is the secret hidden in plain sight. Surrender is not the opposite of creation. It is the highest form of creation. Trust is not passivity. It is the most powerful active state a human being can inhabit. Letting go is not losing. It is allowing. It is making room. It is ceasing to interfere with the divine intelligence already arranging your good. The masters of this truth are not the ones who desire the most, or visualize the hardest, or affirm the loudest. They are the ones who have learned how to desire from fullness rather than from emptiness. They have learned how to assume without strain. They have learned how to release the outcome without fear. They have learned to rest in the feeling of the wish fulfilled and to let the outer world catch up in its own perfect time. So tonight, I invite you into this simple but profound state. Stop caring what happens, not because you have stopped wanting beautiful things, but because you have already claimed them in consciousness. Stop checking, stop scanning, stop monitoring, stop gripping. Plant the seed and walk away from the garden. Trust the soil, trust the sun, trust the rain. Trust the invisible intelligence that has grown forests, blossomed flowers, and moved the stars across the heavens without ever once failing. It knows how to grow your life too. And then live. Live fully. Live presently. Live from wholeness. Be at home within yourself. And from that place of quiet, unshaken completeness, watch what happens. Watch how doors open that you were never pushing on. Watch how people appear who were never being chased. Watch how opportunities arrive that you never had to force. Watch how life begins, almost without your noticing, to reflect the very thing you once longed for so intensely. Only now, you are no longer desperate. And because you are no longer desperate, you can actually receive it. You can enjoy it. You can bless it. You can live it. That is what waits on the other side of release. Not emptiness, not loss, not the death of your dream. Only the magnificent unfolding of what was always yours, the moment you stop standing in its way. Stop caring what happens, and see what happens. I assure you, what happens will astonish you. And if these words have stirred something within you, carry them gently into your night. Do not force them. Do not wrestle with them. Simply let them soften you. Let them loosen the grip you did not even know you were holding. And trust, deeply and quietly, that the moment you let go is the moment what is meant for you begins to find its way home. Thank you and good evening. This is Neville Lectures. I'll see you again in the next video.